Hi everyone. What we're going to be doing today is thinking about functionalist subcultural theory. Now, last week you were looking at the sort of more traditional functionalist ideas, the work of Durkheim, Merton, Hershey, and a little bit of Cohen. And for the most part, those theories are based on an individual person's reactions to what's going on around them. So, for example, Merton talked about strain theory. So what we're going to move on to today is a related functionalist idea, but instead the idea that there could be like a group response to what is going on around us. Okay, so there's obviously some sort of breakdown of norms and values. This is a really big thing for functionalists when it comes to looking at crime, but this is about a group reaction. Now, a lot of the things we're going to be looking at this week are very sort of old classic theories, but I think you could sort of update it by thinking about gangs and the current concern there is about county lines and things like that. So we're going to look at three different writers who all go down the subcultural route, and then we're going to talk about sort of some alternative ways of explaining group behaviour. Now, this PowerPoint is not going to explain in detail every single little bit of the theory. You are going to have to read the related worksheet, okay? And the worksheet's got a lot of information on it, plus each task. So you might remember we met Albert Cohen when you did education, and he makes the point that some children feel a sense of rejection when they are at school. So whether it's because they failed the 11 plus or they've been put into bottom sets, they just cannot gain any status or credibility from their schoolwork. They feel humiliated, they don't like being seen as being at the bottom academically of the class or the school year. And so basically they act out, they are frustrated with their lack of status, and they can't get status from, you know, the teachers or, you know, get recognition for their good work. So what they do instead is muck about, and they display antisocial behaviour, and they invert the values that the school normally wants them to have. So the school wants them to work hard, so they don't work hard. The school wants them to respect the property, so they vandalise it. And so Cohen is making the point that because of the way they have been treated effectively, and they feel, you know, this sense of embarrassment and this lack of status, this is why they kick out. And not only do they kick out in school, but they also then transfer that to wider, broader society. So Cohen's idea there, I think, is an important one, and one that you've met before. Okay. Now there are criticisms. Obviously not everybody behaves in this way, and the theory is of its time. It didn't really include and think about women in all of this. What I'd like you to do for the task, as you can see, is I want you to create me a little cartoon, use some pictures from the internet, and basically present me with a little story suggesting how status frustration works. Okay. I should have said before that what you're doing this week is making a Word document, and that is what you're going to send to me. There are 4 tasks. This is the first one. So this will be nice and visual. This will be something a little bit different. You might want to put in a few captions, but keep it short and sweet, because you're going to have the document with all the detail on it anyway. So use this as some sort of revision aid. Okay. Okay, so Cloward and Ohlin were another group of writers also influenced by Merton, and they make the point that for many of us there are many opportunities, what they call legitimate opportunities, for making a success of ourselves. Okay, we can get a good education, we can work hard, we pass our exams, we go to university, or we get a good job and we get promoted. And these are legitimate ways in which we can make something of ourselves. But what if you don't have those opportunities? What if they are blocked? Now, Cloward and Nolan said that as a result of this, there would be 3 different types of subcultural group. Again, you can read up on the detail. Now, some criminal gangs, themselves are set up like businesses. They create a whole new set of opportunities for their activities. But other gangs and subcultures may not be quite as successful. So again, what I'd like you to do for task 2 is, using the description that you've been given on the worksheet, divide your paper or create a chart with 4 equal sized boxes in it. In the first 3, you're going to describe each of the types of subculture that Cloward Ohlin said existed, and then in the 4th box you're going to do some summary evaluations. So our third writer when it comes to subculture is the work of Walter Miller, and he suggests that in working class culture there is a slightly different set of values working, what he calls focal concerns. And whilst these won't make you criminal, they might, for example, perhaps set up a situation where it's more likely that you will act in a deviant way. Miller is making the point that a lot of people from lower class backgrounds end up with periods of unemployment, and when they do have jobs they are low skilled, they're low status, they're low paid, and so they look for excitement outside of work, and they have a slightly different set of values. So one of those values might be having some fun and seeking entertainment and seeking thrills and pushing the boundaries a little bit. Now, if you have that set of beliefs, that might mean then that you think, yeah, wouldn't it be really, really crazy to go and get very, very drunk or take loads of drugs and then go and do something really, really silly, like break into an empty shop or whatever. And they're not necessarily set out to be naughty people and deviant people and criminal people, but there's certain values. There's in fact 6 focal concerns, which means that certain people will get themselves into more trouble. So again, what I'd like you to do for task 3 is, you can find me a picture, I've just found one here, of what might be typical people who come from a certain social class background, and around your diagram can you put the 6 focal concerns in, but most importantly, can you come up with some examples? Okay, so again, I've just talked about getting steaming drunk and doing silly things. Another thing you might do if you wanted to get excitement in your life is steal a car and joyride it. Okay, now I'm not obviously suggesting you often do that, but the reality is that might, for some people, give them the thrills that they require. Now, not everybody thinks that subcultural explanations are satisfactory. We're going to look at 2 alternative explanations, and the work of Matza comes from sort of the social action school of thinking. He is an interactionist, and he very much makes the point that we all actually have inside of us a naughty side. Okay, now for most of us, we keep it buried, and it might only come out on occasion, like when we go away on holiday and we have too much sun and sea and whatever, and we do naughty stuff, but then we come back home and we go back to our normal boring pedestrian lives. Okay, so Matza is suggesting that lots of people have that naughty side, and he sort of pretty much suggests that if people do get involved in naughty stuff, they tend to drift in and out of it. It's very unusual for people to sort of make a lifelong commitment to being in some sort of subcultural deviant group. Okay, he also makes the point that maybe the middle classes can get away with it because they have something called techniques of neutralisation, which means the latest phrase knocking about is white privilege, in the context of how white people get away with things in a way that people from minority ethnic groups don't. And this is sort of the same sort of thing, because what Matza is suggesting is that you know, should a group of lads, they're very middle class, you know, they finish their exams, they go out and, you know, have far too much to drink and get themselves maybe into a bit of trouble sort of in a town centre somewhere, you know, the police might round them up, but, you know, they suddenly sober up a little bit, they reveal their very sort of posh names and you know, their posh addresses, and maybe the police will go, oh, you know, never mind, it's a one-off, and you know, it's just these lads letting off a bit of steam and they haven't really done any harm anyway. And so the police might take them home and mum and dad will be a bit peed off, but the reality is they'll get away with it. Whereas if it's a group of working class lads, you know, their football team's just won the FA Cup or whatever, and you know, they do pretty much the same thing, go into town, have a good time, you know, get a little bit rowdy. The next thing you know, the police may be rounding them up, and there they all are, sort of spending a night in the cells and charged with public disorder in the morning. So, you know, the middle classes have these techniques of getting around things, whereas the working classes may find themselves sort of victims to labelling and things like that. Okay. Finally, a sort of set of postmodern ideas. It's Katz who talks about seductions of crime, and Katz makes the point that we often forget that, you know, some people like crime. They like the fun side of it. They do it because they want thrills, they want excitement, and, you know, again, certain people may not have the opportunity to get fun and excitement in legitimate ways. If you are, you know, a fairly well-to-do middle-class person, you know, you could get your thrills by going skiing once a year because it's dangerous and it's fun, and you know, you find it exhilarating. Most of us can't afford that sort of luxury, and so, you know, if young people want thrills and excitement, they might have to find less legitimate ways of doing it. So Katz talks about that. Ling talks about very similar ideas, and he calls it edge work, and it's the idea that, you know, how far can you go? How far can you push the boundaries in terms of getting involved in something which moves from safe to dangerous? So edge work is important. So finally, once you've done your 3 tasks in terms of making your sort of picture boards and your diagrams and doing some quite visual stuff, I would like you to have a go at this 10-mark question. Now please remember the key to a 10-mark question with an item, you must refer to the item. You've got to get your 2 ideas out of the item and expand on it. You are also going to have to put in a little bit of evaluation, okay? So that is the key thing to remember with 10-mark questions. Now you'd normally spend 15 minutes on it in the exam. You wouldn't spend a terrific amount of time on it, but I'd like you to have a go at that for me, please, as well, and submit it with the rest of your work for Friday.